Good evening, everybody. It is so wonderful to be here tonight at Mussar Mondays at the Torch Center with a packed house. It's so wonderful to be here with all of you. We are today going to continue our principles of faith as taught by Maimonides, by Rambam. And today we're up to principle number 8. Now, if you remember, we're just going to quickly go through the first 7 that we've learned. And the Rambam lists 13 different principles. Every week we're doing one new principle. The first one is that we believe with perfect faith that God is the creator and ruler of all things. He alone has made, does make, and will make all things. Number 2 is that I believe with perfect faith that God is one. Number 3 is that God does not have a body. Number 4 is that God is first and last. God doesn't have time. God doesn't have a beginning or an end. Number 5 is that it is only proper to pray to God and to no one else. Number 6 is that all the words of our prophets are true. Number 7 is that there is no prophet and there will never be a prophet like Moses. And now we're up to number 8. What is today's? I believe with perfect faith, ani ma'amin be'emunah shlema, that the entire Torah that we now have is that which was given to Moses. Right? Shekol haTorah hametzuya ata biyadenu, that is in our hands today, hi hanituna leMoshe Rabbeinu, is the same Torah that was given to Moses, alav hashalom, of blessed memory. And in Yigdal, if you remember the song of Yigdal that we sing in synagogue, it parallels each one of these 13 principles of faith. And we say, God gave a true Torah to his people through his prophet, trusted in all his house. So what we see is that it is very clear that Rambam is teaching us that one of the fundamental principles of being a Jew is to believe in the Torah. And that the Torah that we have today is the same Torah that was given to us at Mount Sinai. And that every part of Torah that we have was given to us by Moses. And one of the big challenges that people today have, I mentioned the story a little while ago. I think it's worthwhile repeating. A dear friend of mine was asked to teach a class at U of H about American law versus Jewish law. And he had told me this, and he had asked if I can help him at any point. I said, with great joy. I'll be at your disposal. Call me 24 hours a day. I'll be happy to assist. I didn't hear anything. For weeks and weeks, I didn't hear a thing. Finally, one night at 11:30 at night, I get a phone call. The Rabbi, you said I can call you 24 hours a day. Now is that time of day. I need your help right now. Where are you? I said, I'll be at your house in 10 minutes. Just hold tight. I'll be there. I come to his house. He says to me, listen, okay, I'm starting to teach tomorrow. I spoke to 3 of my rabbis, and I asked them a simple question. Who wrote the Torah? He says, would you believe I'm going through my notes now, and I see that every one of those rabbis gave me a different answer. Everyone gave me a different answer. How is it possible that I got 3 different answers? Well, I wasn't about to answer that. But I said, you know what? Let's start from scratch. Where does the Torah come from? And then we'll talk about where all of the oral Torah comes from. Okay? So I'm going to pull out our display that we've had numerous times in this class so that we understand. And for those of you online who would like to join us or to have a copy of this, and those of you here who would like to have a copy, we printed 50 copies and they're gone. So we got to print out maybe 100 copies or 200 copies. But this is what I call the pyramid of the truth of the Torah. Now, one of the exciting parts of this is that you can turn it around and you'll see how from Moses receiving the Torah at Mount Sinai till you sitting here in this classroom, there's a direct link of 130 generations from rabbi to student all the way up to Moses at Mount Sinai. An unbroken chain. Right? So you can put your name down there. This is you, right? And it's all the way towards rabbis and rebbitzins, all the way up. You know, from the Rishonim, the Gaonim, the Amoraim, the Tanaim, the prophets, and God giving the Torah to Moses at Mount Sinai. So there's a timeline here. You have the dates of every single individual. Rabbi, student, rabbi, student. Now, we know that the 2 tablets were given to the Jewish people in year 2448 from the creation of Adam. Now, just an interesting side note, that we know that if you listen to the Discovery Channel, you'll hear that the world is 15 billion years old, which is fine. All right? Judaism doesn't necessarily disagree with that. So why do we count? If you look at the Torch weekly email, you'll see that we write 5778. And we know, you look at the beautiful Torch calendar, it says 5778. So why is it okay if they say 15 billion? Because they're not telling you from where we're counting. We're counting from Adam, from the creation of Adam. They're counting looking at the current, whether it's the stones or whatever it is that they're looking at, and they're back aging it. If it takes a year or 10 years or 20 years, let's excel that process in reverse. How long would it take for it to look this old or to be this disintegrated? And they go in reverse and they calculate it's 15 billion years. It has to be. Okay, that's fine. Why is it not a contradiction to Jewish time? Because we start counting time from Adam. But when was the beginning of creation? We forget that day and night as a 24-hour cycle didn't start till Wednesday of creation, the 4th day of creation. So the first 3 days could be 1 billion years, 2 billion years, 10 billion, however million years or billion years, doesn't make a difference. We actually start counting from Adam. Now it's very interesting, just as a side, another side note, aside to the side note, that why do we begin from Adam? Why do we begin? It's very interesting. You see, it says, Sof ma'aseh b'machshava tchila. In our prayer on Friday night, it says, at the end result was the desire in the beginning. Meaning, right? That's one thing. Meaning, the end result, which is Adam, creation of Adam, was really what God desired in the beginning. But you also see something else. On Rosh Hashanah we say, Zeh hayom tchilat ma'asecha. This is the day of the beginning of your creation. Was it at the beginning? Was Adam the beginning or the end of God's creation? So, of course, we know that Adam was the end of God's creation, but it was the beginning because, let me ask you a question. Do you invite your guests to your house and then set the table? Or do you set the table and then invite your guest? That's what the Talmud says. The Talmud gives 4 reasons to why Adam was at the end. Why was Adam at the end of creation? Because the whole purpose of creation was for Adam. So first God sets the table. He creates the sun and the moon, and he creates all of the other creations. And then, everything's ready? Adam, here we go. Welcome. This is the world we prepared for you. There's also, there are 4 different reasons for it in the Talmud. One of the reasons is so that we shouldn't ever say that Adam was a partner in creation. He came when it was all done. Right? It's important to understand. Right? That's one. Also, there's we don't have to get into it because it's not part of our discussion right here. But we see that the most important part of creation was Adam. The whole purpose for creation was Adam. So we count our calendar from Adam was created by God, boom, that's year number 1. All right? Today, we're 5,778 years from the creation of Adam. Okay. So, year 2448, after the creation of Adam, was Moses standing at the foot of Mount Sinai. The Jewish people were standing at the foot of Mount Sinai. God says, Moses, please ascend the mountain. Make sure nobody even touches the mountain. Moses ascends, right? And we have the presentation, the greatest presentation in the history of the world, of God giving the Jewish people a revelation, a relationship like no other people have ever seen or will ever see. The greatest revelation ever in history. You know, we don't believe in Judaism as a religion. Judaism is not a religion. Judaism is a relationship. It's not religion. It's just a set of rules. We don't know why. We don't know how. We may know how, but it's just you have to do it. Or in other religions, they call it a leap of faith. There's no reasoning. Just do it because you were told to do it. Judaism is not about that. Judaism is about a relationship. Every single mitzvah that we have, all 613 commandments that are given to the Jewish people, are tools and opportunities to strengthen that relationship with God. Every single one of them. So, and in doing the mitzvah, whether it's the mitzvah of tefillin, whether it's the mitzvah of mezuzah, whether it's the mitzvah of kosher, whether it's the mitzvah of living in the land of Israel, whatever it is, charity, tzitzis, pidyon haben, redeeming the firstborn, or the bris, or a wedding. They're all tools and opportunities for a relationship with God. And another time you can remind me, there are several different people who are considered clean of all sin. All of their sins are erased. Anybody know who they are? No. Among us. A bride and groom on their wedding day. Very good. Who else? Well, newborn doesn't have any sin yet. Hopefully, we hope. Yes. Well, a convert, they're a new creation. That's correct. Yes. Well, they're not considered like they've ever sinned, because
Yeah.
But the other is someone who becomes either a king, or someone who becomes like a mayor, becomes a leader, an elected leader of a people.
Are we talking about politicians?
No, we're not talking politicians. They're guilty as sin. Someone who becomes a king. Let's put it, someone who becomes a king. And Yom Kippur. Every Jew on the day of Yom Kippur. Why? Because what is the day of Yom Kippur? It's a day of reckoning. But more than a day of reckoning, the day of Yom Kippur is a day where we undertake responsibility. When you become a person who undertakes new responsibility, you say, you know what? I see I made some mistakes. I'm ready to take my next step. A king becomes a king. He says, you know what? I look back. I made some mistakes. I'm going to have to fix them up. A single person gets married. Right? They're undertaking new responsibility. God loves when we take responsibility. On Yom Kippur, we take responsibility for our actions from the previous year. Start anew. So what we see is that when you take responsibility, it's a very valuable thing in Judaism. Now, you contrast that with other religions, no responsibility. Someone died for my sins, I can do what I want. Right? Because he's got it all taken care of. In Judaism, on the contrary, why do we celebrate a bar mitzvah? Because now this child is undertaking responsibility. We celebrate responsibility. We don't run away from it. Right? That's just a fundamental principle we must know in Judaism. Now, the Jewish people are standing at the foot of Mount Sinai. We receive the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments weren't the tablets yet. They were just the utterance of God of the Ten Commandments. And Moses goes up the mountain, goes up into heaven, and we know he comes down with the God-given set of tablets. He sees the golden calf, he breaks it. He goes back up 40 days later, 40 days, that's 80 days total, right? He waits 40 days to keep people, get him in order. The beginning, the Rosh Chodesh Elul, the first day of Elul, he goes back up, comes back down on Yom Kippur with a new set of tablets. And this one is a Moses made. Now, if you watch the Ten Commandments by Charlton Heston, right, you're confused because you see him chiseling away, right? That was the second one. That was not the first one. Right? The first one was the God-given one. In fact, the miracle of the first tablets was that you could see from side to side. So if you looked at the tablets, you saw right through the letters. The letters were floating. Right? So it was a solid stone, and the letters, the aleph was, you could see right through to the other side. So you see the sky right through it. The people on the other side also saw through it, and it looked their way. And the people from the side saw it as well. Moses wasn't able to do such a miracle. Moses had to chisel it out. Okay? So they only told you part of the story in the Ten Commandments movie. All right, so we get the Ten Commandments.
It was like it was a hologram.
Right. So we have like this. We have the Ten Commandments. Then, what's with the Torah? The Torah is written, and we have this in our Bible Crash Course, which is a 5-week course that we've done numerous times here at Torch. We'll do it again next year. At the beginning of the Torah reading, usually we get that started. When we start after Simchat Torah, usually we do 5 weeks. We do a crash course, and you're all welcome to join. So in there we have the chart listing exactly which part of the Torah was written where and when it was done. But it was all written by Moses. Every word of the Torah was written by Moses. There's only a difference of opinion as to whether the last couple of verses, which are after Moses died, were they written by Moses during his lifetime, or were they written by Joshua? But on the preceding verses of the Torah, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, there's no argument that it was written by Moses through the word of Hashem. And in fact, when they lift up the Torah, in every synagogue, we sing, Vizot HaTorah Asher Sam Moshe Lifnei Bnei Yisrael, right? Al Pi Yado Biyad Moshe, right?
Yeah.
It was written through the hand of Moses. That's actually what I told that individual. I said, sing the song. Let me hear it. Let me hear it. I said, let's write it down. What are you singing? Right? And the rabbis who told him that also sing it.
Yeah.
We just have to listen to what we're saying. Biyad Moshe, through the hand of Moses. Every word. Moses didn't add, didn't subtract even one letter without God telling him to do so. Okay. So we have the 2 tablets, and then we have, in the green section here, we have the first the triangle here, the upper triangle, is what we know as the written Torah, the written law. These were written by, the first 5, the Torah was by Moshe. Then we have the prophets, and we have the writings, and here's a list on the side here of each one of them. And They were all written by the prophets. There are a total of 24 books in the Torah Shebechtav, in the Tanakh, the Torah, Nevi'im, the prophets, and the Ketuvim, the writings. And if you have over there, right there, in the shelf, on the right side, right, all the way on the right, all the way on the right, on the right. Yeah, perfect. Can you please pass that up? Shelf number 7. I'll remember that, God willing. We just started a numbering system here in our. So this is a magnificent stone edition Tanakh. Right, this has the entire Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim. The Torah, the prophets, and the writings. All of it in beautiful Hebrew and English translation of the entire Tanakh, the written Torah. Okay. That's the top of the triangle. Second section. This is where some have confusion. This is what we call the oral law. Where's the oral law from? Where did that come from? And plus, all of what you see here is the oral law. This magnificent library. This is all the oral law. Look at the Talmud. Look at all of this section here. It's all Talmud. In the bottom of there is Mishnah. And the obvious question is, if it's oral, why is it written? So Rabbeinu HaKadosh, who is Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, Rabbi Yehuda the Prince, the leader of the Jewish people, saw that the Jewish people, this is back in 170 CE, saw that the Jewish people were starting to forget the oral Torah. What used to happen was that a father would sit with his children, a rabbi would sit with his disciples, his students, and they would read a verse from the Torah, and they would get into all of the discussion of what that means. But people were forgetting all of the links between the written and the oral. Rabbeinu HaKadosh said, I need to write this down. So he started writing the Mishnah. The Mishnah has 6 different categories. One is Zraim, which is seeds. There are 11 tractates in seeds. There's holidays, 12 tractates. Nashim, which is women, 7 tractates. Damages, 10 tractates. Holiness, 11 tractates. And purity, 12 tractates. Each one of these 6 categories, you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of chapters of Mishnah. Before the Mishnah was even finalized, the Talmud was written. What is the Talmud? The Talmud is explaining the Mishnah. Because the Mishnah is written in code, and like we do every Friday afternoon at 12 o'clock, right here at the Torch Center for Lunch and Learn, every Friday, you should come, join us. Friday, Talmud lunch, 12 o'clock. What we do is we discuss the Talmud. And what we always see is that the Mishnah is written with code that needs to be cracked. How do you crack that code? You need the Talmud. The Talmud is the decoder of the Mishnah. And the Talmud is very, 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 number one, thorough. There's no assumptions left on the table. Everything needs to be sourced. So, anytime there's a statement in the Mishnah, you know what the Talmud needs to do? It needs to verify it from a higher source in the Torah. Anytime there's a discussion in the Talmud, there's one question that follows. Prove it. What's your proof to your argument? You can't just say, well, that's the way I feel. I'm a Democrat and that's the way I feel. No, that doesn't work, right? You need to have a verse to back it up. So what you have is the Talmud is always being backed up with a verse and a higher source. You can't just give an opinion that's just like, well, I think that's a nice idea. It's something we should do. We should think about it. No. Bring a verse in the Torah. If it's not sourced in the Torah, throw it out. We have enough in the Torah that gives us exact guidance of how to conduct our lives, we don't need any ideas. And Jews are good at ideas. All right? So, the Talmud elaborates on the Mishnah. The conclusion of the discussions of the Talmud are what is known as halacha. Maimonides, we know Maimonides, he passed away in 1204, born in 1135 CE, 900 years ago. And Maimonides brilliantly went through, of course, knowing every single verse in the Torah, knowing every single Mishnah, knowing every single word of the Talmud, found all the conclusions of the Talmud, and then started organizing halacha, which is law. Bottom line, what do I do? And every single word of the halacha, which is in the purple section, is sourced in the Talmud and the Mishnah, in the Torah. So you can't just write, oh, the rabbis made up all these laws. The rabbis didn't make up any laws. There are a few constituted laws by the Rabbanon, by the sages, but they're all based on a source. They can't just pull them out of a hat. And there has to be unanimous acceptance. So you have Maimonides, Rambam, coming from all the conclusions of the Talmud that are based on the Mishnah sourced in the Torah. You can't just make up rules. And if any rabbi tells you any law, you say, no problem, that's great, show it to me. Prove it. Don't be ashamed. And by the way, you're welcome in any of my classes to ask me to prove anything I'm saying. I'll show you the source for it. I've had a couple of people challenge me. Couple. And I'll send you the sources if you want it in an email translated. Not a problem.
I heard that in the Middle Ages, whatever time period that was, that some rabbis in Europe came up with that chicken is meat. You know, even though chickens come from eggs, like fish come from eggs. Did Maimonides come to that conclusion?
It's in the Talmud already, 2,000 years ago, yes.
Oh, it was before?
Yes, so it's not, yeah, it's not.
Him.
Yeah.
It wasn't during the Middle Ages?
No, way before, 2,000 years before.
Rabbi?
Yes.
Okay, so according to what Maimonides said, just read my Mishnah Torah, and that's all you need to read.
That's correct. Maimonides.
That's what he said.
And here's my question.
Sure.
Then he turned, and then he says in the 8th principle of faith, you got to learn the Torah.
Right.
So, isn't that a little contradictory?
No, not at all. Not at all. What the Rambam did in his workings of the Mishnah Torah is that he took every area of Jewish law, including, by the way, these principles of faith, and said, if you learn the Mishnah Torah, which Mishnah means review. By the way, there's a book of the Torah that's called the Mishnah Torah, which is the 5th book of the Torah, Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy is called the Mishnah Torah.
Yeah, okay.
It's a review of the whole Torah. You see the Ten Commandments are reviewed, are repeated. And there are many of the law, most of the laws are reviewed again in Deuteronomy. It's a review of the whole previous 4 books of the Torah. So, I actually, I was once walking in one of the groceries. I love meeting random people who just stop me because they see my tzitzis and they see my yarmulke, and they pray for Israel, and they, so I had this guy stop me. He says, God bless the Jewish people. I'm like, yes, sir. Right? So he says to me, have you ever seen the 6th and 7th book of the Bible? Like last I checked, there were 5 books in the Bible, right? So I'll tell you, it's actually very interesting that the Medrash says, I heard this from Rabbi Mastery of Congregation Beth Rambam. The Medrash says that there is actually, if you divide up the books the way the Medrash says, it will be 7 books, right? How? So you have Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, till the middle of Beha'alotcha, which is still counting the Jewish people, and then the Jewish people are about to get into a lot of trouble, right? They have a lot of problems. And then you have Vayihi ben Aaron, where you have the upside down nuns. You remember that portion? You have the upside down nuns, which is 2 verses. It's its own book of the Torah. That's number 5. Then number 6 is from there till the end of Numbers, and then Deuteronomy's number 7. Huh? Well, I don't think that's what that guy meant. All right, but it is just interesting that sometimes you hear things, and what I heard from Rabbi Massey was really incredible. But the idea here that every word of the Torah is true. Every word of the Torah is exactly what God wanted us to have. And the more we study Talmud, the more we see that there is not a vowel in the Torah that is extra. The arrogance of people in our generation who start with this Bible criticism is incredible. That they can start critiquing God and critiquing Moses like they're, friends and colleagues. Right? Oh, well, we all make mistakes, right? And comparing Moses, who was the greatest of all prophets, the greatest human being ever created, and to put him at the same level of just Joe Schmo, criticism guy, is preposterous. But either way, the 8th principle is that the Torah was given to us by Moses and was originated from Hashem. It is therefore called God's Word. Right? It is God's Word. We do not know exactly how the Torah was transmitted to Moses. But when it was transmitted, Moses merely wrote it down like a secretary takes dictation. In this way, he wrote the events of his time and the other stories of the Torah as well as the commandments. Moses was therefore called a secretary. He wrote down exactly what God told him to write. You think about it. Moses was around between, he passed away 2488, which is 40 years after the Jewish people received the Torah, Mount Sinai, right when they're about to enter the land of Israel. That's 2,500 years after the creation of the world. So how can he write about the creation? How can he write about Adam? How can he write about Cain and Abel? How can he write about Noah? How can he write about Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and the tribes and everything that happened till he was alive? And how can he write about how he was a little child and a little infant that was put into the basket? He wasn't even there to witness it. It's the word of Hashem. And who would write their own sin in their book? Yeah. You try to cover that up. Just ask Bill Clinton. Right? There's some things you just don't want to write. So, every verse in the Torah is equally holy. There's no verse in the Torah. There's no verse in the Torah. We say, oh, this one is important. Listen to this one. This is really important. No, they're all really important. The Torah might contain verses such as the sons of Ham were Cush and Mitzrayim. His wife's name was... What do we need that? Why is that important? We are going to the names of who were this, and this one was that, and this wife's name was this, and he lived this many years. What's the importance? Isn't it seemingly extra? It's not an extra verse in the Torah.
Sounds genealogical, right?
All these verses are perfectly equal and holy. They all originate from God and are all part of God's Torah, which is perfect, pure, holy, and true. Every single verse of the Torah. Again, what did we speak about? 2 weeks ago? Shekol divrei nevi'im emet. That all the words of our prophets are true. Because if they didn't speak the truth, they wouldn't be a prophet. They wouldn't get a revelation. In order for someone to be proven as a true prophet, what did we say? They have to tell you of something that's going to happen in the future. And not only it happens, but every single detail that they mention is also true.
It has to be 3 times or something,
And if one detail, you say, 9 out of 10, not bad. Right? No. He's a false prophet. It has to be 10 out of 10. If one word is off, it's invalid. Throw him out. He's not a true prophet. 10 out of 10. A person who says that some passages were written by Moses of his own accord is considered by our prophets and sages to be the worst sort of non-believer and a perverter of the Torah. Some words were just written by Moses. Moses just wanted to fill in. Right? Sometimes they have fillers. You know fillers? They have that in television, they have fillers. They have it in movies, they have fillers. In books, they have fillers. You know how you fill up a book, You want the book to be this thick, right? So you just make the font a little bit bigger. That's simple. Right?
What's the purpose of doing that?
Well, they want it to be fuller. It's a bigger book. They can charge more, If it's going to be this little thin book, who's going to want to buy it? It has to be a certain thickness, right? And okay.
Rabbi Wolbe, do you think there was, before Moses, like an oral tradition about Joseph becoming, this leader in Egypt and that whole story? Do you think?
The Torah tells.
No. Well, the Torah did. Later when Moses died, that's fine. But I mean, before that, I mean, do you think among the Jewish people of Egypt there was?
Well,
there
most.
were slaves? Do you think we had some oral?
Possibly. Jews. Jews talk a lot, right? So I assume they knew something. But every single detail of what happened with Joseph and all of his challenges and what happened in the prison cell and what this one was saying, what that one was saying, how do we know what was going on there? Only Hashem. It's very interesting. Today, there's something amazing. It's called technology. Okay? Now, one of the things that you find with technology is that you can pick up a lot of information from video cameras, from recording devices, from satellite images, a lot of really amazing things. And what's very, very interesting is that our sages tell us that the reason why, this is the Chavetz Chaim. Chavetz Chaim passed away in 1934. How much technology was around the Chavetz Chaim's days? Not a lot. You know what the Chavetz Chaim, what was there? Yeah, there was a camera. There was
telephone, radio.
Yeah, but it was not very common. It was like wow, technology is just amazing. It's like
TV,
right. But guess what? The Chavetz Chaim said that the reason why technology is so advanced is because people's emunah is so weak. What? The emunah, their faith. Their faith is so weak. So because their faith is so weak, they need the technology to teach them that if a phone can see, if you could stand here, right? We're right here. Look, we're sitting here in Houston, Texas, and I have this little camera, little eye facing me. It's recording the words I say. It's recording the image. So I'm going to do this. Hi, right? And now anywhere in the world where they would like to, they can see this. Anywhere in the world, from this little camera right here. Is there anybody who can doubt that God can see anything? If this camera can see, isn't it even more certain that God can see? Here, this little device can record sound. Got that sound. You think God can't hear us, hear our voices? God can't record our voices? We can send a little text, bing, in a second, it's in China. You can even make it to North Korea. And do we think that God It says, Bochen klayot valev. God knows our thoughts. God knows our feelings, what's in our guts. So it's not only what we say, which is recorded. Kol ma'asecha b'sefer nichtavim. All of your actions are written in God's book. It's recorded. God has these secret recording devices. Right? So, the Chavetz Chaim is telling us, if you don't believe in God, here is technology. If technology can do this, don't you think God can? Yeah.
You've always stated in my 70 million classes I've been to that these were not inventions; these were discoveries.
That's correct.
All this was created during in creation.
That's correct.
All this technology. So my thought on that would be, Hashem must have known we didn't have enough emunah. He had to create that.
He didn't create it, but he said, you know what? I'm going to give this gift and this revelation to this generation so that they have another tool to connect to the Almighty.
He gave us the ability.
The ability. It's always been there. What are you thinking? Moses and Mount Sinai, there weren't radio waves? Of course there were radio waves. But they didn't have that revelation. Oh, and thank you, David. So David Coleman is telling us he's in Dallas. And he sees us in Dallas. Can you imagine? We're here in Houston, Texas in a classroom and he's in Dallas. And thank you, Yael. You're right here. It's great. Great to have you here. So such a person claims that the Torah must be divided into a core and a shell, and that the stories and history contained in it were written by Moses and are of no true benefit. Right? So a person who believes that it wasn't all written by Moses, it wasn't all written through the Word of God, but Moses just wrote his own thing. So basically it's like an onion. Yeah, the outer part was written by the prophets, but you go down to the core. No, all of it is Torah. All of it is the word of Hashem. All of it is written through the hand of Moshe. Okay? Such a person is in the category of those who say the Torah is not from heaven. Our sages teach that this category includes even one who says the entire Torah was given by God, with the exception of a single word, which was composed by Moses and not spoken by God. Regarding such a person, the Torah says in Numbers 15:31, he has despised the word of God. His soul shall be utterly cut off. Someone who denies one letter of the Torah to be untruthful. Someone who says one letter isn't the word of Hashem is among those, it says in the Torah, soul should be utterly cut off from the Jewish people. If one really understands the Torah, then he finds every word filled with wondrous wisdom. It contains a depth that can never be plumbed completely. It is broader than the earth and wider than the sea, as our sages tell us. One need only follow the example of King David, the anointed of God and Jacob, who prayed, "Uncover my eyes, that I may behold the wonders of your Torah." So the Torah is so deep and so amazingly wide. It says it's a ruchava kiminei yam. It's as deep as the sea, wider than the sea. Right? The Torah. It's amazing because, as much Torah as you study, there's still more to learn. As much Mishnah as you learn, there's more to learn. As much Talmud as you study, there's still more to learn. And then you go through the Midrash. And then you go through the Zohar. And you go through all of the books here.
The levels.
And it's deeper and deeper and deeper. It just doesn't stop. It's unbelievable. New things coming all the time. So it's amazing. It's a never-ending
Revelation.
It's a never-ending yearning that we should have. It should be a yearning that is never quenched. It's like you're thirsty. You're so thirsty. You need to drink more and more and more. That's the thirst that we should have for the Torah. Okay. Let me just read the final two paragraphs in this little section here. The same is true of the accepted explanation of the Torah, which was also given by God. Following this oral tradition, we make such things such as the sukkah, the lulav, the shofar, tzitzit, and tefillin in exactly the manner that God dictated to Moses. How do we know what a kosher animal is? You know, one of the fundamental principles, we've mentioned this 100 times here, the Torah only tells you what to do. The Torah does not tell you how to do.
Except for sacrifices.
Even the sacrifice doesn't tell you how to slaughter the animal. It doesn't tell you how to slaughter it. Every mitzvah tells you what to do. It does not tell you how to do. It says to put a mezuzah on your door. It doesn't say what a mezuzah is. It leaves the fact out. It leaves that point out. It says you should put it on your doorpost. Which part of your doorpost? Maybe the bottom. Maybe all the way on the top. Maybe on the... Right? Well, it doesn't say. It doesn't say. So how do we know what to do and how to do? What to do is written in the Torah. The how to do, that's the oral Torah. That was given to Moses is explained. And we've mentioned this, that there were 4 times in the history of the world, the Midrash tells us, that all of the animals converged to one location. Anybody know when? Adam had to give names to all the animals. So all of the animals came to Adam. The second time before that, Noah.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Noah, very good. So Noah had to get all the animals into the ark.
Yeah, that's right.
Number 3
Sinai.
is in Egypt when all of the animals attacked the Egyptians, the wild beasts.
You got the 4th one.
And that's according to some. So according to some it's 3, so according to some it's 4. And the last was at Mount Sinai, like you said, where Moses needed to show the Jewish people what's a kosher animal, what's a non-kosher animal. So they all showed up to Mount Sinai, to the desert, where the Jewish people were. Moses says, here, that's what we call a piggy. You see? It has the split hooves. It doesn't chew its cud. Out. Next. Right? And each one, Moses is showing us, this is kosher, this isn't kosher, this is kosher, this isn't kosher. And we've done this in greater depth in our breakneck through the Bible class. We've gone through specific mitzvahs and pointed out all of the details that the Torah just tells you what to do, but not the exact how to do. And the reasoning behind it, that's what we have over here, a beautiful shelf here, the mitzvot. We have a shelf here which just deals with the mitzvot of the Torah, giving us the reasons behind it, giving us the source in an organized fashion. There's so much to learn, my friends. Okay? And Moses transmitted this to us as a trustworthy messenger. The Torah teaches us this principle when it says in Numbers 16:28, Moses said, through this you shall know that God sent me to do all these things, and I did not do it on my own accord. Moses himself. Now it's a very interesting thing. We're trying to understand the truthfulness of the Torah, right? So when you have a public revelation, it's very hard for you to get the accounting of it wrong, because everyone has a witness in it. Everyone has a right. So let's give an example here. I've given this example before, but imagine all of us here tonight. Imagine all of us here tonight. I say to you, okay, guys, I'm gonna share with you the real secret. Okay, I'm God. All right, and we're starting a new religion. It's called Davidism. Okay, Davidism. Okay, now I'm going to tell you the reason why you need to believe in me as your God is because I took you out of Katy and brought you to New Orleans. Okay? So you're saying to yourself, something's wrong with this guy, right? We were never in Katy. I never saw you there, and you never took me to New Orleans, right? It's the equivalent of God saying to the Jewish people, believe in me, I'm Hashem, your God, because I took you out of Egypt and brought you to Mount Sinai, and brought you to the land of Israel. 1 second. That never happened. Except it did. It did. And exactly the way it's documented in the Torah is exactly the way 3.2 million people witnessed it, with not one detail missing. It is accurate that every person, there was nobody there who said, you know what? 50% is true, 50% is a little bit exaggerated by Moses, right? The horses and the chariots of Pharaoh didn't really fly like that. Oh, yes, they did. And the Torah tells you, go down under the Red Sea today, and you'll still see those chariots there. And if you go on the Discovery Channel, you'll see it as well. Okay? They went down there, and you see the chariots, and they dated it back, and it dates back to 3,300 years ago, when the Jewish people left Egypt. Exactly like the Torah documents it. So you can't make a religion that's based on a public revelation and it not be authentic. Now look at other religions. What are the other religions? Oh, no public revelation.
Intermediaries.
You had Muhammad who says, I had a dream. Now take me for my word or you're dead. Okay? Jihad. Right? It's all over. You don't believe me? Done. And other religions as well. The Muslims didn't kill half as many as the Christians did for people not believing in their insanity. It's an individual revelation that one claims to have had. Right? The whole thing is built on this, this how do you call those things of cards? Right? A house of cards. Right? And if you move one card, the whole thing will fall apart. Right? A pyramid, right? And if it's so fragile, you can't even ask questions. It's a leap of faith. You take it as is, or get out. We don't want you here. In Judaism, on the contrary, ask all the questions you can. Beat it up. Beat up the Torah. You know what? The Talmud will help you. The Talmud, every page of Talmud is packed with questions. Investigating this, investigating that. Why this and why that? And everything is answered in the Torah. Now this is not here, we're not here to knock other religions. We're here to just pump a little bit of excitement into our soul. We are the chosen people who got this great gift. We have this amazing gift called the Torah. It was given to us. It was not given to anybody else. This is ours. It's our treasure. And this is a mitzvah for us to believe in the truthfulness of the Torah. In the truth that every word that's given to us in the Torah is the word that was written by Moses through the hand of Hashem. Through the hand given by the word of Hashem through the hand of Moses. And there's not a word in that Torah that Moses made up on his own. There's an action, right? Moses broke the tablets, and what did God tell him? Anybody hear of the word Yasher Koach? You know where that comes from? That's what God told Moses for breaking the tablets. It says, Yeyasher kochacha al asher shivarta. Good job, Moses. You did the right thing. It's true. Now you know the source for it. Right? It's Yeyasher. It's you should become strengthened. Right? You should become strengthened because you did the right thing.
Was God being sarcastic?
Not at all.
God isn't sarcastic.
You think God was happy with Moses breaking the commandments?
Apparently God says that.
Of it.
Apparently God says that in his Torah. Right? In our Torah that he gave us. So there's a lot more to discuss still on this topic, and I really want to continue this. But I want to point out over here what it says at the end, and maybe we'll go back to this next week. We'll continue some other part. The Sanhedrin This is the Rambam at the end of in his Yad HaChazakah. He writes the following: the Sanhedrin, the great court in Jerusalem, is the basis of the oral Torah. It stood as a pillar of law, and from it laws and judgments emanated to all Israel. The Torah assures us of this court's authority when it says in Deuteronomy 17:11, "You shall abide by the Torah according to how they teach it to you." This in itself is a commandment of the Torah. Everyone who believes in the Torah must therefore accept this court's authority and depend on it regarding all matters concerning our religion.
I thought that.
One second. I'm not done. 1 second. One who does not believe in the oral Torah is counted as a heretic. If one openly denies the authenticity of the oral Torah, he is in the same category as all the heretics, people who deny that the Torah came from heaven, informers and renegades. All of these are not counted. Now, this is only true when one denies the oral Torah on the basis of his own thoughts and opinions. This is the person who follows his own limited intellect and stubbornly denies the oral Torah on his own. He thus follows the footsteps of the Tzedukim, the Baitusis, and their followers. But this does not include the children of those who go astray or their descendants. These are raised, right? So you have to understand that people who grew up with a secular upbringing, who didn't grow up going to a Jewish day school, or even went to a Jewish day school for whatever reason, were distanced from Judaism, they do not fall into this category. They're not ones who are saying, "Oh, we don't believe in the Torah because we know that it's not true." No. We don't know anything. We don't know what to believe, to not believe. Those are people, what is Torch here for? Torch is here to give every single Jew access and connection to the truth. We don't judge people, we accept everyone. And I've told you this about 150,000 times. We don't believe in Orthodox Judaism. We don't believe in conservative Judaism. We don't believe in Reform Judaism, Reconstructionist Judaism. We don't believe in any of it. We believe that there are two types of Jews. There's a growing Jew and a stagnant Jew. And we believe firmly that every Jew deserves the right to be a growing Jew. Every Jew deserves that right. And it doesn't make a difference where your membership is. It doesn't make a difference who you associate yourself with. Every Jew deserves the right to be a growing Jew. So, no matter if you vote one way or vote another way, no matter if you're a member here, if you go or if you don't go, every Jew needs to experience and enjoy the Torah. That's a gift to each of us. It says, Morasha Kehilat Yaakov. It's an inheritance for the Jewish people. It doesn't say only to the scholars. It doesn't say only to the rabbis. Kehilat Yaakov, to the people of Israel. To every single Jew. It belongs to you. It's your Torah.
I thought that Moses didn't get to go into Israel.
That's correct.
Because he threw the
this past week's Torah portion, correct?
That's not one.
That is. It says it in this week's parsha.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
All right. So God told him good job, but he was.
That's not what.
Oh no, that was a punishment. That's fine. It's two different stories. Two different. It's because he hit the stone. He didn't speak to the stone. In this past week's Torah portion, but we'll get into it another time. Yeah, we'll get there by breakneck through the Bible 2023. Right? Oh, we'll get there before that. We're moving pretty fast lately. Okay.
Yeah,
Either way, to our dear friends online, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you join us again. And please, when you get home, like and share these videos so we can teach Torah to the entire world. We can get it out to Mexico and to Canada and to North Korea, right? And to Japan and China. Thank you, everybody, very much. Have a lovely evening.